Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Gama. Welcome to the Pathfinder podcast, where you can get inspired to go full-time with your passion, or if you already own a business, to take it to the next level. And I am so excited to have Kristi Helzer here today. I have a lot to share about our origin story, but first I'd like to read your introduction. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Kristi Helzer is the dynamic founder of Northern Colorado Women in Business, which she launched in 2009. With over 30 years in marketing, communications, and business matchmaking, Kristi is a multifaceted professional. Her career encompasses teaching, speaking, networking. She's been a farmer, a writer, an exercise instructor, public relations specialist, video producer, school bus driver, radio personality, and her favorites being a mom and Grammy. She's a passionate cheerleader for women and this community. She's a skilled communicator and listener, often described as intuitively listening between the lines. Kristi is dedicated to servant leadership, believing in the power of volunteering and the law of attraction to make impactful changes. In today's podcast, Kristi will share strategies and systems she uses to capture attention in a world overcrowded with messages and competition to secure your brand and make you memorable. Married for 46 years to Richard and a proud boy mom to their oldest, Ben, who is a miracle, and their youngest, Joey, who is in heaven, Kristi's life story is as inspiring as her professional achievements. Kristi, you and I met way back in around 1995. I was just starting my web design business.
That's right.
You were the marketing director for United Way of Weld County. A mutual friend introduced us.
Yes.
And you invited me to go to the Greeley Business Women's Luncheon, a networking event,
Yes.
and I said yes. Thank God I said yes. Because, well, when we showed up, I saw this group of business women all in one space, supporting each other. Mm-hmm. I was amazed as they introduced themselves one at a time, stood up, said their name, the name of their business, and I was just blown away. You exposed me to that model. And I want to thank you.
I want to thank you. You're one of my proudest associates that I get to watch just soar into the universe because you've mastered so many qualities that you wanted to, and you keep taking it further and further. And Lori's in my association is so great because she came to a Northern Colorado Women in Business event here at LINC. Mm-hmm. And that was the impetus to make her start doing her podcast. So that makes me proud, just like she's one of my kids.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's what you do. You support women and you connect us to resources and to each other. So you launched Northern Colorado Women in Business in 2009, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And you can find you on norcowib.com.
Thank you. Yes.
But you hold your workshops in different places, and this at LINC Library and Innovation Center, where we're recording from today, you had your workshop here, and we got to tour the place. Yes. And so when I saw this amazing space we're in now, it solidified what I'd been thinking of doing and, launching my YouTube podcast to interview wonderful people like you so that we can inspire people.
That's
so
right.
Speaking of which, go ahead, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say I used to work for the library district, so I treasure libraries, and being able to share it with people is hugely important to me. I was a part of it when it was the Weld Library District. Now it's High Plains, but it just keeps evolving as technology evolves. And the gentlemen in here that are helping you produce this are rock stars, so the whole community needs to know about this, as well as your podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So let's talk about your early years, and we're going to cover a lot today. So some of your early influences on the path of life, well, there was one major event. So first, you were born and raised in Greeley,
Yes.
graduated from high school here in Greeley. Greeley West High School. You met a farm boy.
I did.
Richard.
Yep.
And you were attending UNC in your first semester, second quarter, and when you got the news that your father had passed away. How does an event like that shape you?
Well, that was probably the beginning of my grief journey, as for lack of a better term. I had to go to Heath Junior High and get my younger brother and sister, the twins, out of school and tell them our dad was dead. I would never wish that on anybody. My mom was great. I mean, if you can imagine having 4 kids to raise and you're 36 years old, that's pretty wild. So it definitely impacted my college career because I had to work full time to put myself through school. And I could handle that. And it's probably why I'm a little schizo to this day and never just do one thing, because I had to work full time. I was going to school. I kept my grades up because I valued my education, and was blessed to meet people like my advisor, Bob Hess. And I told him I wanted an internship at a Denver TV station. And he said, "We've never done that, Kristi." But he said, "You go for it." And I thought, wow, okay. And that's when I first learned about gatekeepers, because I reached out to several TV stations. There was a traveling TV truck at Channel 7, so I really wanted them. And the woman that was answering the phone was the gatekeeper. And so I asked all kinds of questions about the woman that was going to interview me, and found out she'd just won a wet t-shirt contest. So I sent my resume on a t-shirt, and I honestly think I had that before I even went down and interviewed, because it impressed Letitia so much that I got that creative. And that's a lesson in your career path, is if you're going to go big and be bold and be creative, because you want people to remember how you make them feel. And obviously I did my homework and knew some things about her, and it tickled her. So it was great.
Exactly. I mean, that's great. What a great story. Now, at UNC, you majored in journalism, mass communications, and then you minored in anthropology. Is that right?
I did. The history and science of modern man. I really thought I wanted to be a social worker when I first started, and took several classes that were taught by TAs, and they just didn't light my fire. And I went into my anthropology class when Dr. George Fay was so animated. I could take 8 o'clock classes from him and I stayed engaged. And I was in his class when my neighbor came and got me to tell me about my dad. And Tommy Runnels, who I went to high school with and is a dear friend to this day. We went all through high school and then college. He was sitting beside me when I was called out, and he reached over and squeezed my hand. And I think that probably got me through a lot. Tommy was the bench coach for the Colorado Rockies for years, in case that name sounds familiar. But he's an amazing artist now, too.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Stay in
You've
touch.
touched many lives in our community. So you have a story to share about the late, great Joe Tennyson, a.k.a. Mr. Greeley. What's your
right.
story with Mr. Tennyson?
Joe was amazing, and my son Joey was named after Joe. When I worked for him at KFKA, I was the copywriter and promotions director, and I also got to do a program called That's Entertainment. And Rich and I was kidnapped by Santa Claus in a yellow VW before I got married, because it was around Thanksgiving. If you ask my husband when we got married, he'll say the Saturday after Thanksgiving. It does change dates, Richard. But they were so great for us, and we were so involved. That was a family. So I did the KFKZ Christian side with Gail Holmes, and I did KFKA. Got to do That's Entertainment, which meant our advertisers would give us tickets to go to concerts and to review movies. And when you're a young wedded person to a farmer, you have no money. And so we had entertainment, and it was a great experience for me. So I wasn't just writing copy and interacting with the advertisers that way. I got to do some things on air too. And anyone who knows me knows I love to communicate. So that was a lot of fun.
So Joe Tennyson, though, he was the one that told you that he recognized your servant heart.
He told me I will not be happy as a servant leader unless I'm helping others. And that was very insightful and very true. So he was a great role model. And
Yes.
everybody should have a role model.
Exactly.
And a mentor. And if you don't have one, get one, or a life coach or a business coach, and be a mentor to someone else.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to have anything to do with age. We can help each other along a path anytime somebody's taking a new one. And after COVID, there's a lot of people that have remade themselves. So go for it. I mean,
Right.
if you want to try something, don't be discouraged or have that head chatter telling you can't. Just do it, and if you fail, you learn, and that gives you more tools for your tool chest.
Exactly. I mean, way back when you took me to that luncheon, as I saw all of these business women so successful, I thought, if they can do it, I can do it. And
right.
look where we are now. I mean, I grew from a one-woman web design shop back then in 1995 to having a 14-person digital marketing agency, still here in Greeley. And you helped me a lot in those early days. You were my mentor. You were very supportive. You referred work to me.
You helped me start my website.
Your first one.
It was mutual.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Don't be a spectator in your life. Be a
Right.
participant. You know, we all have so much we can give, and in that giving, you get as much as the person you're helping. And I love to be behind the scenes, working the magic, and I don't need to worry about getting credit for it because I see how that lifts people up. And when they feel better about themselves, they do amazing things, and you get to enjoy that ride with them, and that's huge.
It is. It's very huge. Very huge. So, defining success. You've had so many remarkable achievements. You are like the GOAT of marketing, especially in the 90s and mid 2000s. You're the first and only person who sold out the Union Colony Civic Center.
That is a big moment. We teamed up, we being Mirage Production, Andy Nagel, and the professors in the orchestra department at UNC, and we took Doug Kershaw, the Ragin' Cajuns, music, and they scored it for orchestra, and we worked with the kids, and oh my gosh, what we put together was fabulous, and I loved it. Doug is still alive today, and I think he was 72 when we did that back in
Wow.
2008. And he is just a force of nature. I think I have energy. Oh my gosh, that man's just off the walls. And I think I shared this with you. One of the best moments was the after party. I was sitting right behind the mayor in the Civic Center, and he was so into it. He got so excited, and he kept looking over his shoulder and giving me a thumbs up. So he was engaged, and we had to raise a lot of money to pull that off. I actually contacted Tabasco Clear in Louisiana to be a sponsor, but Doug's music actually went up into space. So he was a well-known commodity. He worked with Johnny Cash and a lot of people, so it wasn't hard to sell it. But a student came up to me at the after party. She grabbed my hands and she's jumping up and down. And I said, "What, Brittany, what?" She goes, "Kristi, I'm a fiddle player." And she was a violinist who had studied since she was 3 years old.
Oh.
To bring that magic and that thrill, but it was partly because Doug would listen to the kids. If they had suggestions on what should change in the scores, the professors and Doug listened. Those kids felt so valued, and they did such an amazing job.
That's awesome.
It was so fun.
That's awesome. You're responsible for so many things. Another thing that you did was you wrote a certain grant. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I did. That has to do with this library district.
Yes. Tell us about that.
Maggie Whitwer, who was my office mate when I worked for the High Plain, or for, I don't want to get it wrong, the Weld Library District, we teamed up and wrote a grant to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and that's how the first computer lab started in the district. So that was awesome and impacted a lot of people. So that was a big thrill. You'd asked me what I was the most proud of in my career, and I told you that was almost impossible. But what Lori did is my career, being in marketing communications, I am smart enough to know that there are so many other people out there that have great ideas that I kind of tried to shift every 7 years. Never had a 7-year itch in the marriage, but I tried to shift just to do new things. So I had my arts period, I had my education period, I had my conservation period. I worked for oil and gas, and I took away all kinds of great things from all of those. But one of the things I'm most proud of is I worked with Leona Martins to write the case statement and raise money to build the Weld Food Bank. And then when I was with Noble Energy, we also gave them their first truck. So all those things tie through your life, and you have the resources to continue to give back and feed those things so that it energizes new people who want to get involved and have an impact too.
Right.
So we're going to be doing a volunteer stint coming up in April because they're our sister-to-sister Pay It Forward. Through Northern Colorado Women in Business, every month we have a different nonprofit that we help. And our women donate their business card and $5. And then it goes, we've raised over $24,000 in the last 6 years to give back to our community.
Wow.
I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. That's a
So,
lot.
and also the Vietnam Wall.
Yes, tell us about that.
When I was working with Dignity Memorial, we brought the wall to Greeley, and then we did it to Rest Haven and Fort Collins. And I have to tell you, I've always been God and country. I love my family that served in the military, and I'm very proud of them and what they sacrificed. But we lined up everyone that came that had served our country along that wall, and everybody who was a spectator or family member thanked them for their service. And I can't tell you how many of those folks had tears in their eyes, how many of the Vietnam vets talked to me afterwards and said nobody ever thanked them. And that was a tough war because it was on our TVs, and it freaked so many people out to see
Right.
that death and dying.
So you actually created that space for people to be able to thank them.
Exactly.
That must have brought a lot of closure to them.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people would put their paper up and do the etchings with the names of their loved ones who were lost. And we read everyone's name through that 4-day period, and
Wow.
it was rewarding. So
Yeah.
there's another one.
Yeah. Can you think of one more?
Oh gosh.
There's so many.
Well, I've been blessed, to be real honest. And I think you mentioned Greeley Business Women's Network. I was president of several different groups before we launched Norco Wib, and I did that because I was a boy mom. All my life was wrestling and football and baseball and bleacher butt, excuse me, and you know, supporting the guys and being room mother. And my kids through the Greeley Tribune for 14 years, started them some of the youngest carriers, and that was mainly to teach them responsibility, but also to make sure they didn't get in trouble because it was an afternoon paper back then. The paper's pretty much online for most people now, but it's just really exciting to reach out in lots of different directions. And as a mom, you had to be creative. My youngest son would tell you he was volunteering when he was in diapers, which was not true. But I took my kids everywhere with me. So if I was working at the food bank, or if we were doing a Habitat for Humanity build, and my husband called me out one time because he's engineering and very, you know, no gray areas, everything's black and white. And he said, well, with all the work you've done, what do you have to show for it? Really nice for your husband to say. So I loaded him in the car and we went out to Tenement Village, and I said, do you see that house? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, do you see that house? Yeah. And I said, guess what? Your wife and your sons helped build those, along with a bunch of volunteers. We did the first women's build because Joe Tennyson was then executive director for Habitat for Humanity in Greeley and Weld County. And he said, Kristi, we want to do a women's build, and you're the person to get that done. And I said, okay, Joe, whatever you say. And we did. We had an electrician that was a female. We had a plumber that was a female. We did have males who helped us, but it was predominantly women. And you have the opportunity when you're building to put a message on the studs before the drywall goes up. Some of us would put scripture, some would just sign our name, some would put a message. And I told the boys, I handed them a Sharpie, and I told my sons to do that, and then I walked away. Because I know my boys won't do it if they think that it's what I really wanted them to do. But they did, and I got to see that later. And you work side by side with those future homeowners. They put in the sweat equity, and it's such a rewarding experience to know you're going to give somebody a home that's never
Right.
been able to afford it.
Right.
So
And-
another great thing.
Yeah, and I love how you involved your boys.
Always.
Tell me about that.
Oh, I think that they had a great time. When I taught at Ames Community College, JF Images, Joe Farrell down in Denver was a good friend of mine, and I taught screen acting as well as TV production. And so I called up Joe one summer and I said, hey, you guys doing anything we could come be extras on? Because I really like to give people authentic experiences. So we were in the Father Dowling Mysteries, we were in a couple Diehards, but the biggest one that we had the most airtime for was Ladybugs. Rodney Dangerfield, and he had a boy dress up like a girl to play soccer. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember.
Well,
that
you
one.
need to watch it because
Okay.
my kids have tons of TV time or movie time. But when my son Joey started kindergarten that fall, they were supposed to tell what they did during the summer. And so he stood up and said, I was a movie star and I made $380. And he sat down. So when I picked him up afterwards, Pam Hungenberg, who I think it should say under teacher in the Webster Dictionary, her name, she's amazing. She said, well, your son has quite an imagination. He told us, and I said, well, that's true. So maybe he does have an imagination, but he wasn't telling a story.
That's wonderful.
So another great experience.
Right, right. Let's talk about women supporting women, because I think that's just so ingrained in you. Can you tell us more about your role that you played in Friends of a Woman's Place and how you believe in women supporting women, especially those that are experiencing domestic violence?
I've always been an advocate for people in crisis, whether it's kids, women, the elderly, the hungry. And I got involved with A Woman's Place and then was part of Friends of a Woman's Place. I also got a small stipend and worked for them to train people about communication so they could go out and teach people about what they did at the Safe House and how people could come there and the different programs to help them recover and their kids. So really had a soft spot in my heart. And they started honoring amazing heroes in our community through the Celebrating Women's Gala, which you were honored.
Thank you.
And it just felt really awesome. Again, I hate that I'm repeating that word because my vocabulary is pretty extensive.
I tend to use that word a lot too.
Well, it's extraordinary to actually realize the people we have in this community and what they accomplish.
Right.
And some are so quiet about it that it was nice to put them on stage and cheer for them and hear their stories. And that's something else that I learned when my son was in an explosion is everybody in this community has a story. And a lot of them have crises or challenges or bumps in the road, and nobody's is more important or more impactful than someone else's, which is why we should all respect each other.
Yes.
And try to spend the time it takes to get to know those people. When you're out networking, the greatest gift you can give is time. And go big. Honor them. Listen. Put your phone away. Pay attention. Listen between the lines. Communication is important, but listening is the
Right.
big secret.
Make eye contact.
Right.
Yeah.
And ask open-ended questions so they open up to you, and then remember what you learned. I make cards, and I keep track so I know their kids' names, their pets' names, their goals. And then if I can think of somebody that might help them, I make sure that I take them to coffee and introduce them. And a lot of people are afraid to go to coffee with me because when I was doing a lot of fundraising, I was usually asking for something. And another trick is always have a backdoor question. Because if you get shut down, don't just walk away and give up. You need to ask them for something else.
Oh.
So if I was seeking a $5,000 donation and I was told they didn't have the budget, then I'd say, well, how about a silent auction item?
Ah.
So, you just have to kind of keep your game sharp and know not to give up, because there's a lot of people that like getting engaged, and sometimes it takes baby steps. And serving on volunteer committees has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Facilitating some of those was huge. I think people who give have such amazing hearts that those are the people I want to surround myself with.
Amen, sister.
And my women in our group and my children,
Mm-hmm.
because we can learn so much from each other.
Oh, yes. I mean, even some of your workshops over the years that I've attended, I remember the Generations one that Christine Thomas, local personal life coach,
We
taught.
love her.
Yes, she's amazing.
And we've got another one February 7th coming up with Amy Sminsky, who's going to address 5 generations. And, as employers, a lot of people come to me and say, how do I team build with my group? How do I keep my employees engaged? So that retention's so important. A big part of that is knowing how to communicate. Not everybody's my age, and I don't want my life to be so small that I only work with people within a decade of my date of birth.
Right. It's not
Boring.
just the Enneagram personality, which is important to know, but the generations and what each generation has lived through, what's made them who they are, and so that we can communicate better with each other.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Like Gen Z and the greatest generation have a lot in common because they went through the Great Recession, Gen Z, and the greatest generation went through the Great Depression, or they have a mother or grandparent that lived through it. So
Right.
there's a lot of overlap with the generations. So I'm excited to attend that workshop too.
Oh, it's going to be great. It'll be awesome.
Yeah.
As you know, Lori's a member. I survey our membership every summer, so June, July, and August, and they submit ideas for people to speak, topics, And then I work my tail off trying to make sure that I can deliver those things that are the most popular requests. And we did one on AI, which blew everybody away because it was still relatively new for some of us. And we just did another one on social media and how to best use that. So, you know, our world is getting so broad. And to stay competitive, you have to be able to do some of those things.
Right.
And we're having fun exploring all those opportunities. And a lot of people, Vilkaitis, who was there in January, challenged people to get online. And look at you, you're doing your podcast. Allison Dunning with Merrymakers and Decorators, she's doing a video every day. She committed to do 30 days worth, and by golly, she's going to do it. So it's really interesting to see how enlightened everyone has become. We had an enlightening conversation this morning. That's one of our small group mastermind sessions. And the sharing that goes on in those small intimate groups and what we're very authentic. We don't share. We respect everybody's privacy, but we are going through a lot of similar things, ups and downs, successes and failures and challenges. And I think sometimes just maybe because we're women, sharing that strengthens us.
Oh, yes.
And it builds the bond between members because they get to know each other better. And I feel I'm very intuitive. I'm an empath. And I schedule where people seat at our events because I know who needs to know each other. And so I really try to get people to register early enough so I can get in my zone and do that well. And sometimes things happen at the last minute and we just roll with it. But it's so funny because I had one of our members this summer come to me and say, Kristi, you sent me by so-and-so 3 times. And I said, gee, I wonder why. And she looked at me and I said, have you guys had a really deep conversation? She goes, I'll talk to you later. And you know, that's just, you have to make those connections yourself. I can give you so much groundwork, but then you need to tap into what's the magic here.
I think networking should be renamed, and I think we should call it friend making and supporting your friends, because that's what it's really all about, your relationship building. It's not just like, here's my business card, see ya. It's not that at all. And I love that you create that space every month, more than once, if, you know, if people want to attend
Started
this.
celebrating our wins now too, so
Right.
that's a new one.
Yeah.
That's an even smaller, more intimate group, but it is great. I think the biggest gift anyone has ever given me is time. And when you get that gift at a time when you really need it, and someone, you know, just makes room for you in their life, that's huge.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So I highly encourage people to do that. And if you see a need with someone that you're interacting with, a friend, a colleague, a coworker, and you know somebody that has that talent, ability, resource, connect them.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's not hard to do.
Yeah.
And
It's fun.
It is, and it's a wonderful experience on both sides. And it's not just women. Women are more natural at it, I think, than the guys. The guys do it more on the golf course, I think. But, you know, it's still taking the time to build a relationship and a friendship, as you mentioned, and see where it goes from there.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely. So how would you define success?
Whew. For me, it's never quitting. It's not always the wins. I think it's okay to fall on your face once in a while. It doesn't feel good, but as long as you learn from it, it'll be a resource for the next time you approach something similar, and hopefully you'll miss the pitfalls.
Right.
I like to bring things in on time, on budget. I respect deadlines. I have some superpowers.
Yes, you do.
One of my students gave me a plaque that says, I'm a teacher, what's your superpower?
I like that.
I like that one too. And I have a couple that I sent you that are kind of fun. But I'm a gatherer of people. And as long as I can keep people gravitating towards us and the opportunities that we put out there, that's a huge thing. And for me, I think doing things anonymously where people don't know who did that and seeing how it lifts somebody up, that's pretty special. and it means a lot to me. Providing an opportunity for somebody to volunteer that's never done that. That's something else. I have a strong faith. I was raised in church and Sunday school, and I think with what life's handed me, I'd probably be a sniveling mess in a corner somewhere if I didn't believe in my Lord and Savior. But not everybody does, but having a higher being definitely helps, and I think it's that do unto others as you would like them to do unto you type of concept. And that usually will seal the deal if you're trying to make a new friend or hire a new employee. And when somebody has ideas, listen, because you don't know what kind of magic might happen. But by listening, they feel valued.
Yes, yes. And I think for me, success means being able to achieve my goals so that I can give more to my loved ones, give more to my community. But I'm really grateful for the freedom to be able to attempt to achieve my goals. So there's many different definitions of success. I love yours.
Well, that's good that it's different for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what makes life fun and interesting.
Yeah.
And I just want to always tell people, don't be so full of fear you don't try something.
Right.
Because you can't succeed if you don't try.
Right, right.
Okay, I told you, having a career and working is like any other muscle. You have to practice it, you have to condition it, you have to nurture it, and that doesn't happen without work.
Well, and what's your advice for women, wives, single moms who are balancing those roles but also own a business and are trying to grow their business? What advice do you have to empower those women?
I don't think there's anything wrong with involving your husband and your kids. Sometimes they go kicking and screaming, but most of the time they have a really good experience, and that helps them grow too. Ben went on to become the president of the Colorado Therapy Horses, and I got to write a national article about that. Richard McMahon started that program, and we brought some women who'd been through domestic violence out. And the way that concept and the program, the way it works is you all gather in little lawn chairs out in the field, and Richard turns the horses into the pasture, and the horse picks who they're going to work with. You don't. And they know who's hurting. And it's just terrific. Kids with autism drape themselves over these horses. They're agitated, and all of a sudden they're just calm and peaceful.
Right.
So things like that are huge.
Yeah. So you advise, like, don't be afraid to involve your husbands and your
No.
children. And
That's how my kids learn to get involved.
yeah. And I would say, too, that don't be afraid to not be perfect. You know, done is better than perfect many times.
Always.
And we try to be so perfect all the time. Well, I used to try to be.
I've never
perfect all the
tried.
time.
I know I have imperfections, and I own them. And it's okay.
I love that. So what are your future goals? You know, looking ahead, you've achieved so much, but what are you excited about achieving in the coming year?
I love that we have a website up with our members' profiles, and it's growing and growing, and every time I go in and look at all the tremendous power that we have in that tribe, that gives me a boost. My family is thinking I need to be retired.
I can't imagine
And
you retired.
I don't know how to do that. I've now, for the first time in 42 years, am not serving on any nonprofit board. I retired in May of last year from Weld Women to Women, which I left Friends of a Woman's Place to go to, thanks to Kay Berdarius. And all of it's been very rewarding, but I am really excited to have time to spend with my grandchildren. And so I want to get Norco Wib on a real smooth roll, and Rich and I want to do more traveling, and I will always give back. There's no doubt about it, but I can do that now through Norco Wib, Northern Colorado Women in Business. That's our acronym. And so I feel like there's all kinds of opportunities there to continue to do that. So I don't see a whole lot of change, except maybe I might have more time to be a Grammy.
That's good. That's really good. That's what I would do if I were you.
Yep.
Let me ask you this question. If you could go back in time with all the knowledge you have to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Well, I've always been pretty moxie and pretty courageous, so I wish I could turn back time and not lose so many people and have to go through some of those experiences quite so young. 10 days after my dad passed away, one of my dearest friends committed suicide. But that helped me get involved with the Community Grief Center, which is another. The one statement I haven't made, Lori, is nothing I've done was just Kristi. Everything I've done has been with an incredible team, other volunteers, other professionals who have skill sets way beyond mine. And that's why it's so great to be around people that are so different than you are, because everybody has a special strength. And when you combine forces, you can do great things. I think I knew that all along, but I wasn't quite as brave when I started working in 8th grade. My parents had a clothing store, so I would dress windows, I would unpack freight, I'd wait on customers, I'd wrap gifts. So I always have worked. One summer before I did my internship at Channel 7, I decided I was going to make enough money so I didn't have to work during that internship. So I worked at the Spud Nut Donut Shop from 5 to 8. Then I rode my bike to Ehrlich Motors, and I worked there from 9 to 5. And then I rode my bike home, and I'd go to the Gondolier, not every night, but it was an Italian food place, and I waited tables and was a cashier. I worked hard for those 3 or 4 months, and it worked, but I had to borrow some money from my mom during that internship. But my cousin let me move in his basement, and when I worked on that internship at Channel 7, I did my shift, and then I would stay, and I'd get to run a camera. I got to floor manage. I got to do all kinds of different things because they were so sick of me. But I didn't leave. It was an opportunity, and I wanted to cash in on it.
Well, do you think you would tell your 20-year-old self, keep doing what you're doing because it's going to be helpful to you later on? Or what would you say to her?
Sure. Well put. No, I think I would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've lived a very wonderful life, and I'm very grateful for that. And have a gratitude journal. Every day there should be at least 3 things you're very grateful for. And putting it down on the days when things are really kind of sucky, it's good to go back and look at that and go, oh, okay, yeah, okay, that's still there. Oh, good. All right, I'm back on track. Thank you.
Yes. I am so grateful that you came in here today so that I could interview you you could share some of your wisdom and advice. Where can our viewers find you or find NorcoWib?
It's just norcowib.com. And you can go to our membership directory and see some of the folks that are a part of our group. There's 30, this is all started. When I launched it, there was never a fee to be a part of this. Unfortunately, the times that we're in and the expense of having a website and catering and all kinds of things, we do have a fee now. There's 3 different ones, one for education and nonprofit, the ultimate's for the average business owner that's full-time, and then we even have another one that we call basic, and those are for people that have a side hustle or are retiring or partially retiring. So we try to keep it affordable for everyone. So I have another 12 that have paid but haven't gotten their profiles up. So it's really starting to grow, and I'm starting to plug them in so that I have this blog that puts people to sleep because I love to write. And so I'm trying to formulate more bullets to keep people sane. And I'm starting to move all of our members to a different communication tool, MailChimp. And so people that don't have a membership won't get that same treatment as our members. And that's hard for me because I'd just as soon do the universe, but I have to take good care of my flock.
Right. No, that's a good lesson for any business owner listening or anybody who's thinking of going full-time with their passion.
True.
You can't do stuff for free. It's, you have great value, what you do, what you provide every month. You gather all of these business women, and it always sells out, too.
Most of the time. There's some that wait till the last minute, Lori, and I'm trying to train them better.
But there's literally over 80 women, right? Every month?
We average 60 to 70 every month. So
it's a huge room full of business
for
women.
Christmas, we went over 85. But yeah, most of the time, it's a big group, and it's a lot of moving parts, and it challenges me. But when we first started, I said I'd have to have at least 30 to make it profitable. And it took almost 9 months before we got to that point. So it had to grow. Yeah. And there's all kinds of other networking groups out there that have started, and several that have names very similar to mine. And so I don't begrudge any of that because everybody has to find where they're the most comfortable. I just want them to be out there and promote their business and network. But I started printing our schedule on the back of my business card. I've seen 2 others who are doing that. I do a 7th inning stretch, which I think is my baby. And we get up, the women up, while we're doing our networking minutes around the table, and we get energized by doing some kind of physical activity, which is hilarious most of the time. I want to have fun, and then the giving back through sister to sister.
Yeah.
So our added components of enlightening conversations and our celebrating our wins besides the workshop. So it is right where I would like it to be.
So yeah, if you run a nonprofit here in Greeley, or you own a business and you haven't been to Norco WIB yet, you've got to go. That's all. You got to go.
We'd love to have
Yeah.
them. And everybody brings something to the table.
Right.
So I have a leadership team, and those are the people that have come 12 months or 11 months. Sometimes they'll gift a membership if they have something that's kept them away, but that's who I recognize as the leadership team, because everybody's responsibilities ebb and flow. So they can't always be there every
Right.
month, and I understand that. But the ones that are get rewarded.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and even if we're not part of the leadership team, I feel great reward every time I attend.
So. I hope
Yeah.
so.
So
You
thank-
have so much to offer so many of our team.
Oh,
I
thank
love
you.
it when you're there.
Thank you. I love being there. Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for
This
having
was
me.
incredible. I love you so much.
I
Thank
love
you
you
for
too.
being here.
So this is mutual admiration.
Aw.
And I feel like I came back to my roots with being in a TV studio again.
Oh, cool.
So it was fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kristi. Thanks, guys.